What's going on, everybody? Midwest Gatherer here, out on a rather warm November day. It's early November and we are out here to look at one of my favorite weeds, or at least most people would consider it a weed. This is the Lambsquarter plant, also called tree spinach. Now, this plant starts off as a tiny little seed and starts to grow in the early summer. It can be harvested then as a shoot vegetable. It's pretty tasty, but you do have to collect a lot of them to really get much of a meal. As the plant grows up, it becomes more tree-like, or as you might be able to see here, quite large, and that's why it gets the name tree spinach. The leaves that grow on it are edible, much like spinach. You can eat them raw, you can eat them cooked. They're very mild, they're pretty tasty, extremely nutritious. Pound for pound, more protein in these leaves than in fish. So, great plant to know, great plant to have growing on your property. And again, it grows like a weed. In the fall though, everything dies back and gives way to these seed heads. And this plant is also related to quinoa. And so the grain of this plant happens to be very similar to that of quinoa. And we can collect it and cook it up in the exact same way. It's a smaller seed, so you do need more of it. It is a little tedious to deal with. Some people would consider it a famine food, but it's pretty tasty and it's rather abundant when you do find it. So come with me, let's figure out how we harvest and prep this food. All right, so here you can see one of the seed heads, and you can kind of shake them. Sometimes the seeds will fall out nice and easy, but I often just kind of move the seed head through my hands to get all of the seeds to drop. Now you can see in here that is not all seeds. There are chaff and other materials inside that we'll have to separate here in a minute. But for now, I'm going to walk around and just collect as much as I need. All right, here are some of the kind of, I guess, collected materials. This has chaff and seeds in it, but if we just mash it up a little bit between our fingers, you can start to see the little black seeds separating from the chaff material. And they make machines to do this, not just for Lambsquarter, but for all sorts of grain. I mean, this is what a combine harvester does, you know, in a field. So we've got our little bucket of seeds and chaff here. And so we're just going to go through and try to displace all the seeds from their husks. And we'll do that by just working it back and forth. And we'll do this for probably 5 or 10 minutes. So I've tried quite a few methods to separate the seeds from the chaff. And the best way I found to do it is to use a combination of different strainers with different openings. And I start with the largest opening, and then I work it through the next one, and you can kind of see the technique here. And finally we end up with a decent amount of these black Lambsquarter seeds, and I'll go pour them back and forth outside in the wind just to get rid of the remaining chaff that's still inside. And then we're going to go ahead and put those in some water and begin to boil them, much like you would quinoa or rice. However, it does take longer to boil these than quinoa or rice. We're going to go ahead and get this onion cut up into slivers and quick pickle it with some salt and lime juice. If you let this set for 5 or 10 minutes, up to 30 minutes, you get a nice kind of pickled onion. Here I had some leftover Burmese tofu that I made from chickpeas. If you want to learn how to do that, it's very easy to find online, extremely fast to make a kind of quick pinch tofu. Highly recommend it, very easy, very inexpensive. We're going to go ahead and start cooking some, we'll call it a naan or a pita, just kind of a flatbread basically. And we'll do that while our Lambsquarter is boiling. You can see the bread flipping there. We're also cooking rice simultaneously because we're not going to have enough Lambsquarter seeds for the entire family. I'm going to go ahead and throw some onion into a warm skillet. And we're going to cook those until they start to become translucent. And we're going to go ahead and add some coriander. We're gonna add some curry powder then. Some ginger, fresh ginger would have been better, I just didn't have any. Some turmeric. We'll add in some fresh tomatoes. Somehow I was still pulling these out of the garden in early November. And a nice can of chickpeas now that those tomatoes have begun to kind of become a sauce. We'll add some maple syrup. This is a substitute for sugar and fenugreek. It kind of has a maple syrup flavor. And then we'll go ahead and add our minced garlic. And I forgot cumin, so we'll add cumin. And now you can see this is what our lambsquarter seeds kind of look like when they're finished, and perhaps you can make out how they open up kind of like a quinoa grain does. They are definitely a little more firm even after cooking than what quinoa is, and so maybe the texture takes some getting used to. We're going to add some cream to our sauce, and we'll plate it. This turned out really good. The lambsquarter is crunchy, a little bit nutty. There is maybe a hint of bitterness. I probably could have switched out the water when boiling them, but I really didn't mind. The Burmese tofu was a nice addition. Overall, a very good meal for a wild grain. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you on the next video.